I'm a continental chef, but I love giving international dish an Indian twist. So join me and let's prepare Parmesan curried chicken fingers. To begin with, we'll prepare the curried powder first. First, I'm going to add cinnamon, pepper balls, mustard seeds, fennel seeds, coriander seeds, cumin, dry red chilli, curry leaves, fenugreek seeds, garlic powder, ginger powder and turmeric powder. I have not added salt. I'm going to add salt while I'm grinding the curry powder. So let's just dry roast this spices. Guys, the curry powder is ready. I'm going to let it cool for a while. By that time, I'm going to start with the cutting of the chicken. Never throw away these sides. You can use them for your gravies, sauce as well as stock. Now I'm going to cut it like this. At least with one brush you can get 3 fingers. There you go, they are done. So guys, our chicken is done. Now I'll start with the crumbing preparation. First, I'm going to chop the basil. Guys, whenever you're chopping basil, remember to chop it only once because basil is a very delicate herb. If you chop it twice or thrice, it will get black. Now I'm going to put the basil in the breadcrumbs. Nicely mix it up. Guys, before I add the star of the dish, which is also known as the king of cheese, which is specially known as Parmesan cheese or Parmigiano Reggiano. Now let's not waste any more time and grate the cheese in the crumb. Guys, I've grated the Parmesan cheese, and let me tell you another great factor about Parmesan cheese. Do you know 130 gallons of milk goes in creating 1 barrel of Parmesan cheese, and the weight is around 39 kgs. So guys, let's just mix the cheese with the crumb now. After making the crumb, I'm going to make the curry powder. I'm going to add dry spices, which I've cooled down into the grinder. So guys, our curry powder is ready. As you can see the color. So let's start the chicken marination first. I'm going to add ginger garlic paste, the curry powder, salt which is left and oil. Now let's nicely mix the chicken in the marination. I'm going to let the chicken rest in this marination for at least half an hour. By that time, I'm going to prepare the flour batter. I'm going to add little curry powder into the batter. The reason being it should give a nice flavor to the batter. I'm going to mix it a little bit. With this, I'm going to add 2 beaten eggs. Going to whisk it a little bit. And last, I'm going to add water into the batter. So guys, our batter is ready. It has reached a nice thick consistency. Make sure you whisk nicely so that there is no lumps. So guys, our chicken is resting and our batter is ready. Let's prepare a quick dip before we start off with the frying. I'm going to prepare a roasted bell pepper dip, for which I'm going to use red bell pepper, which I've cut into cubes. You can also prepare it in the oven by roasting red bell pepper and tomato with garlic. So guys, let's prepare the sauce. First, I'm going to add oil into the pan. As the oil starts heating up, I'm going to first add garlic. With that, I'm going to also add onion to it and celery. This is also known as continental tadka, which in French is known as the mirepoix. Guys, as in a continental dish, we don't need to brown the garlic. Now I'm going to add the tomato. With that, I'm going to add the cubes of bell pepper. As the pepper is almost done, now I'm going to add tomato puree. With that, I'm going to add oregano and chili flakes. Nicely saute them. So guys, our dip is ready. I'm going to add little salt to it. I'm going to give a nice mix. I'm also going to add a little bit of basil and Parmesan cheese. I'm going to give nice big whisk to it. Mix all ingredients together. Now I'm going to let it blend. Till that time, I'm going to fry my chicken fingers. While I was preparing the dip, I had kept the oil for heating. It is perfectly heated. Now I'm going to use it for frying. First, I'm going to take the chicken finger, dip it in the batter nicely. Now I'm going to put it in the crumb. After crumbing the chicken nicely, I'm going to put it in the plate. I'm going to finish off with the rest. So guys, our chicken is crumbed, our oil is heated up. Now we'll start off with the frying. Guys, once the oil is heated up, make sure you put it on a low flame so that the chicken doesn't get burned and you get a nice golden color once the chicken is cooked. As the chicken is boneless, make sure you fry it for at least 8 minutes. Guys, our chicken is nicely fried and our dip is ready. Let's start with the presentation. I plated my chicken. I'm going to add some parsley on top of it. And here goes our dip. Our dish is now ready. There you go guys, our curried Parmesan chicken finger is ready. I hope you enjoyed this amazing Indo-Italian appetizer.
I'm back with yet another dinner special recipe called Indian Spice Roast Chicken. So let's start cooking. To begin the recipe, I'm going to make a small chutney. For that, I'll require, first I'm going to add tomatoes, onion, fresh coriander, curd, and red chili paste. So guys, our chutney is ready. Let's start with the marination. For the marination, first I'll transfer chutney into the bowl. Into the chutney, I'm going to add ginger garlic paste, chopped green chili, chopped red chili, turmeric powder, red chili powder, coriander powder, homemade garam masala, and kitchen king masala. Lemon juice, freshly chopped coriander, kasuri methi, and next into it, to bind the marination, I'm going to add chickpea flour. And last, to add smokiness to the marination, I'm going to add mustard oil. Now we'll start mixing them all together. And lastly, into the marination, I'm going to add some salt, and last, black pepper. Give one final mix. Before putting the marination, make sure you put gashes in the chicken. Now we'll do the scoring in the chicken. Also make sure to put gashes on the leg as well as the thigh. Now we'll pour in the marination. Massage the chicken nicely in the marination. Let the marination go deep within the gashes. The chicken is properly marinated. It's time to add some garlic powder in the chicken cavity. Now let's place the chicken on the baking tray. After placing the whole chicken, I'll put the vegetables for the sides. Some tomatoes, cauliflower florets, French beans, some carrots, both green and yellow zucchini, and sliced onion rings. Now we season the vegetables. For that, first I'm going to drizzle some salt, little oil, black pepper, and last little marination on the vegetables. Now we'll put the chicken for roasting for at least 30 minutes at 250 degrees Celsius. So there you go guys, our Indian Spy roast chicken is now ready. You also do try the recipe.
Mashed potatoes are something that by default everyone ends up ordering in a restaurant. Well, I won't say it's difficult to make, but trust me, it's very tricky. On that note, let's make mashed potatoes. Well, I would suggest to use dry or starchy potatoes or old potatoes. Well, the potato, like I said, needs to be dry and starchy. You need to boil it well, peel it right, and the next step is to mash it. Now for mashing, I'm of course using a potato masher to begin with. You need to mash it individually like so. Ensure that all the potato becomes nice and soft, something like this. But here if you closely notice, the potato is still a little gritty. Let's wait and watch. Well, initially when you begin mashing the potatoes, it looks very easy. But trust me, when the quantity keeps increasing, it kind of gets a little tiring. Well, but that's the beauty of making mashed potatoes, so we better well go through that. Well, just a little while earlier, I showed you the grits in the potato. The next step is to take care of those. I'm passing the potato mash through a sieve. Well, again, you need to do this in smaller portions and not everything at the same time, because otherwise it's going to get difficult. What we are looking at is just passing the grits and making them finer. So here if you notice, we have a beautiful soft mashed potato here, and on the other side you have absolutely nothing. So that's exactly how we need to work ahead, and similarly, let's mash and pass all the potato through the sieve. Once all of the potato mash has been passed through the sieve, let's keep this aside and let's move on to chopping some parsley or chives. For this, I'm using some curly parsley and chopping that nice and fine. Once the parsley is chopped like any other leafy vegetable, the next step is to start cutting this using a rocking motion like this. Well, potatoes and parsley, of course, are a classic combination, and so is potato and chives. Chopping parsley is going to take you anywhere between 4 to 5 minutes, but trust me, chopping it nice, fine, and almost like powder is going to be worth the effort. Well, on that note, let's move on to the next step, and that is getting the mashed potato cooked to perfection. Well, I'm heating a non-stick pan in this case and adding in salted butter. Well, while adding butter, I'm just going to retain a teaspoon of butter and keep that aside for later use. Well, at face value, this looks like a lot of butter, but trust me, the flavor of butter is everything in a mashed potato. The next thing that goes in is milk. And while there is still a lump of butter which is here, I'll add in the potato which has been passed through the sieve. Time to add in some salt. Be extremely careful with the addition of salt because there's no water in this recipe. Salt is there in the butter, and salt was also added in while boiling the potatoes. On medium flame, churn this nicely and evenly till all of this gets almost emulsified. Now the next question that would arise is how much do we cook the mashed potatoes? Once all of this potato mass comes together, that's the sign that the mashed potato is done and ready. The next step now is to start flavoring this. At this stage, you can add in pepper, you can add in thyme, you can add in rosemary, Well, that's a personal choice. What I'm adding, like I said earlier, is some parsley. Give this a quick mix. With this, your mashed potato is done and ready. Let's transfer this nice and piping hot in a serving dish and top this with the remaining butter and parsley. So with this, your soft, silken and almost custard-like mashed potato is done and ready. Well, top this on pie, serve it with steak, so have it just like that. Mashed potato is eternal. Quick, simple, easy, and what's more important is this one is just under 5 ingredients. Thanksgiving, of course, calls for feasts, family get-togethers, and lots of love. Well, on that note today, let's make an elaborate cake, which is actually a classic, very rarely seen on the menus today, but worth it. It's called pineapple upside down cake. Well, I'm going to divide making this cake into 3 parts. The first part, of course, is the base, which is going to get inverted later. Now that is going to become saucy, caramelized, and buttery. So the first thing that goes in a bowl is, of course, salted butter. We just need to cream it lightly. And to this, I'm going to add in brown sugar. Well, the sugar that I have is absolutely soft, but you can use any brown sugar that you get. It's important that this sugar actually is brown because that is immediate caramelization. You do not need to go through the process of cooking or caramelizing the sugar. Cream this mixture till it's nice and fluffy. Well, there are various ways of making this. Well, this one is actually a cold method. There's another method also which actually begins on the pan. You need to melt the butter. Once it gets a little nutty brown in color, you need to add in the sugar. Caramelize that, cool it completely, and add in some lemon juice. Well, I personally prefer using this method because what happens is when you're actually cooking the sugar in the pan, it may tend to, of course, get caramelized, sometimes over caramelized. But what we forget is that the entire mixture is going to get cooked in the oven once again. And that time, the sugar may tend to get burnt. So this gives complete control on the caramelization. Once this is creamed well, the next step is to transfer this at the bottom of your pan. But this could be the mold of your choice. You can use aluminium, you can use silicone. That's your choice. Scrape this well completely. The next step is to evenly spread this at the bottom of the pan. The next step is to place canned pineapples on top of this. To make this look nice and pretty, let's add in some color, and this color comes with glazed cherries. Let's place that right in the center of the pineapple. If you wish to get a little more creative, you can use the remaining cherries and place them here and there. And this step is completely optional. Well, let's keep this aside and let's move on to making the cake batter. For this, let's first begin with all the wet ingredients. For that, let's begin with oil. Well, you could also use melted butter if you wish to make it nice and buttery. But what I've figured out over the years of making this cake for my family is that with butter, the cake tends to get a little drier. If you're fond of dry cakes, please go ahead with that. Just need to break the eggs lightly. To this, let's add in pineapple juice because I like it nice and intense with the flavor of pineapple. To make it softer, I'm adding in some buttermilk. And along with this, to balance off the flavors, I'm using in essence of vanilla. Let's give all of this a good whisk. Time to add in some castor sugar. Mix this well. Once the sugar in this mixture dissolves completely, time to add in the dry ingredients. The first thing that goes in is, of course, refined flour. Need to sieve this well at least twice or thrice so that the pores kind of open up. To this, I'm adding in baking powder along with baking soda. And to make it nice and nuttier, I'm adding in desiccated coconut. While this one again is completely optional, what you could substitute this is either with almond powder, cashew powder, or walnut powder. Let's mix this well. And while doing so, let's add in a flavoring here. And this flavor is nutmeg. Let's grate some fresh nutmeg, like so. Let's give all of this a good mix. We need to scrape off the spatula and whisk this for 2 minutes. Once this entire thing is well mixed, the final thing that goes in is just a pinch of salt to balance off all the flavors. One final mix, and this entire batter now goes in the cake tin. The next step is of course to bake this. I'm going to bake this at 200 degrees Celsius for 40 minutes in a preheated oven. Our pineapple cake is baked and ready. Let's rest this in the mold itself for 30 minutes. The pineapple cake has rested well, and if you can closely watch it, you have some juices that have now released from the caramel and the pineapple, and that once we upturn, it's going to seep into the cake, and that's going to add in to the juiciness and softness of the pineapple upside down cake. So the next step now is to place a plate on top of this and turn this like so. Very carefully, just tap it lightly and release this like so. With this, our pineapple upside down cake is done and ready.